Watching Good Morning Nigeria, and it's now time for newspaper review.
Right, and papers in hand. Chukwudi Okoliobaja is ready for newspaper review. Good morning.
Morning, Victor. How was the weekend?
Well, uneventful for me.
It's okay. You're still alive and healthy. That's what matters.
Mine was sleep through, all through.
You slept all through. So you feel very refreshed.
Yes.
The feeling is mutual.
I wasn't feeling very well, so I said, sleep is medicine. Let me just
sleep is medicinal.
crash too. So I did. And
I'm rearing to go, as you can see. So make it happen.
Yeah, so Chukudi, let's begin with the paper review, and I'll begin with the Daily Times newspaper. In the Daily Times newspaper, above the masthead, enemies within sponsored fake news campaign against NNPC leadership. That's coming from a group. I don't know actually which the group. You want to find out, you read the paper. And below the masthead, NLC to RMAFC, halt politicians' pay increase or risks national opera. You find the details on page 2. And investors lose 2.29 trillion naira in 1 week as naira extends losing streak. You find the details on page 12. At the bottom plate, security agencies deserve better working environment. Akpabio, the Senate President, is saying that. The details on page 5. Olubadan designate Ladoja tax family heads on security in Ibadan. Details on page 8. North Central Group demands presidential ticket for PDP, ADC, and SDP. You find it on page 15. Kwara State government to prioritize Fulani herders' children education to end insecurity. Details on page 8. And Delta 2027, Omo Agege urged not to run against Oporoveru. That's on page 7. Let's quickly go to the Business Nigeria, and above the masthead, we have 10,000 jobs created in Lagos as Sanwo-Olu launches Oluremi Tinubu Leather Hub. Details on page 2. Atiku vows support for ADC's 2026 presidential nominee. You find the details on page 2. And below the masthead, farmers lament as fertilizer prices soar, threatening crop output. Details on page 2. The headlines: controversy trails RMAFC's 105 billion naira 2025 budget, with rider 32 times higher than 2024 allocation. And the details. And stock market loses 2.3 trillion as investor sells shares. Find the details in the paper. Recapitalization, bank share could slash investor returns, analyst warn. And Nigeria steady at non-bank outshines FPIs. It's there. And FG said 60% debt limit in new 3-year plan. You find the details all on page 2. Victor?
All right, thank you, Jumai. I have the leadership here with me. And just above the nameplate, Nigeria, South Africa should forge economic partnership. That's according to Malema, a South African politician. Below the nameplate, DMO projects single-digit inflation by 2027. You can find details on page 7. And in what seems like the major headline here, mixed reactions as Sultan says justice become purchasable commodity. The poor are becoming victims of this kind of justice, while the rich commit all manner of crimes and walk the streets scot-free. That story is on page 4. Just above that, also on page 4, is in that tiny strip, Rivers residents split over Fubara's anticipated return. And the last 4, just by the left here, Benue Assembly gets new speaker is on page 7. Gunmen kill man, why? 5 others in Imo is on page 2. 6 dead, 19 rescued, 3 missing in fresh Sokoto boat accident, page 30. And Ibom Air versus Emanson. Governor Eno sues for peace, promises compensation. That's on page 7. And just before I bring Chukwudi in, after 3 missed deadlines, NNPC sets November for AKK project's completion. You got details of that on page 38. Chukwudi.
I think even skeptics would begin to question their insistence that economic policies do not work in this country. We said this last week. DMO projects single-digit inflation by 2027. They're saying it's going to fall to about 10%. And you say, interesting. I think we're dealing...
10% is not single digits.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not single digits. It's
not
okay.
single digits.
You know, I wrote mathematics 3 times and failed it 4 times. It's okay. If it doesn't fall to 9, I think they are talking about... they are calculating in terms of proximity to that figure. But the point I'm making is that we seem to have to be seeing steady improvement on and on. Last week we said things are happening, but it seems to be at the macro level. It's not affecting Victor's pocket yet. Because let me make my point. But it's beginning to affect Victor's pocket. Because this time last year, beans was 3,200 naira. Jumai, it is now 1,004. Yes. You know, what I always say is, please, when we are doing well, let us say we are doing well. When we also need to tell government, hey, we don't think, like they are now telling the RMAFC that what they are proposing for political office holders is a bit on the high side, you know. Joey Jairo is saying that it's going to bring in a lot of inequality, income inequality between the political office holders and people like us, you know. There may be something in that. Well, at the end of the day, what we are looking for is something that percolates into a basket of fruits for the maximum number of Nigerians. Yes. I won't be able to handle it the way Professor Ife or Bismarck Rewani would, Rewani Bismarck would. But at least basic economics tells us that things are beginning to happen. Economic policies work in this country, particularly if those who are to implement assume some level of discipline.
That's the key word.
That is the point. If policies would always work in our country, you know, and they're saying that...
I like the fact that there's so much talk around that area, and I like the fact that President Tinubu listens.
Oh, yes.
He listens.
Well, some of us have always known that.
Yes, he listens. So I believe something will come out of, the NLC statement and all that.
He listens. He's a diplomat. You know, what you achieve with a big hammer, he just sits quietly and then body language gets it done. Yes. It's his nature. And he's a #1, conversation maker over certain things. Yeah. I knew that when I was in Lagos. So now the Chinese man you mentioned, it tells you that people can't come into this country, do whatever they like. Look at the cooperation between our security agencies, Interpol and the Chinese and other relevant organizations to get him repatriated to his country. I pity him because there are harsh measures in that country concerning people who go out there to bring a blemish to mother, to mother
China.
Yes. But what I'm interested in more is that you can't come to Nigeria and still treat it as St. Ifesonye, sent do as you like. No. We too are beginning to flex muscles over how we want.
It is no longer business as usual.
Exactly. I think that is something to be applauded. Yes.
All right, and a look at that Ibom Air versus Emanson.
Yes.
Where the governor, and as it should be really, Emanson is from Akwa Ibom State, and Ibom Air belongs to the Akwa Ibom State government. And the governor seems to be saying, look, let's maintain peace, and promises to pay compensation where necessary.
Let them do it as a family.
You know, my people say that if you begin to press fufu a lot, you begin to see seeds in it, and things like the no pound and well will begin to drop from your lips. I think the first thing that happened was how the aviation minister rushed to douse the flames. If we don't handle this matter well, it will have spin-offs we're not going to like. So the conciliatory tone you keep hearing is deliberate diplomacy. I don't want anybody to go to the marketplace half-dressed over this matter. I think we can handle it. Yes. I personally didn't like how the lady got exposed and all that. It left a sour taste in my mouth. But then you would also tell people that complying with rules would matter a lot. So many things we do in Nigeria, we can't try them abroad. Not even in Ghana there. So let us not...
Even in Nigeria, you can't.
Exactly. Togo. I went to help a friend, went to pacify somebody over a car that was left in Lome for too long. And they told me something. He said, watch, when we get to the border, immediately we cross the Nigerian side, every place will become serene and calm. When you're coming back, the minute maybe you slept off in the car, the minute you're woken up by a roar, not just noise making, you have returned to this country.
Horn.
We are boisterous. We are boisterous wherever we are.
And NLC rejects proposed pay rise for political office holders.
We've already mentioned that.
That's been in the news since last week.
Exactly. We've mentioned that. So the bit I want to add to it is that somebody is actually warning that the kind of expenditure they are projecting for the future, 105 or so, is 32 times larger. Yeah, that sounds unbelievable. I think there's a disconnect somewhere. I don't know that story properly. We don't speculate. We want to, talk about things that are verified, as a journalist would want to be sure. But if they are going from how much? 3 point something to about 105. I think there's a disconnect somewhere. Because in economics, I don't know much of it, but I know about source and application. When you hear something like this, you want to ask the RMAFC, what is your source? You're thinking about applying. Where are you going to get the money from and all that? So these are questions I think that we need to pose to experts in this field to help us sort out what this is all about.
Now we can have a clearer picture.
A clearer picture, yes, so we don't speculate.
News can be sensational in Nigeria,
yes.
Especially when it doesn't favor the common man.
Yeah, I agree with you.
News will just keep floating and all
Complaint falls easily from the lips of the so-called oppressed.
Yes, oppressed. And I also like this from a group, I don't know which group because I don't have the inner page. Enemies Within sponsored fake news campaign against NNPC leadership. It has been trending for quite a while.
What I do is this. When my people say that a man who stands well, who stands properly, does not need to jet furtive glances behind. When you know who you are, fake news will eventually reveal itself, and those who are the purveyors, those who carry it, will be shamed over time. If I were the NNPCL leadership, fine. Sometimes you need to say one or two things about words being pushed out not in favor of you. You need to say one or two things to say, oh, that's not the true position. But if you know who you are, man, know thyself. That's where life actually draws inspiration from. If you know who you are, know what you have done over time. My people will say, the mouth that spoke evil will eventually
speak good.
Speak good.
We have it in Hausa,
It's in Hausa as well.
It's Hausa,
yes.
It's in Hausa too.
All these African languages are actually related. The Codofinian connection.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's it. NNPCL doesn't need to lose any sleep over this. Let them just keep doing what they think is right for themselves as a corporate and for Nigerians over time.
And I like this statement by the Senate President Akpabio saying security agencies deserve better working environment. And also living environment, I'll add to that myself. Because their living environment
when we started this journey, one of the things I said is, if you want to know how wretched our policemen are, go to their barracks and look at the curtain on their windows. You would almost throw up. Security agencies deserve a fairer deal. I told you about a traffic warden that stopped me, took me to the park opposite the secretariat, And he was saying he was going to deal with me and all that. Then when I replied, he started cringing and said, oh God, the cow you way there your mouth. If you put me for trouble. Tears rolled down my cheeks. How could a man who gave a uniform be afraid of me? How could the hunted become the hunter? That tells you about their mental disposition. They don't feel confident even in that uniform. We can do a lot of things to make them the true, servers of the Nigerian people that are supposed to be confident people.
Confident.
Yes,
it's
very
confident.
important. How could I speak to Renchi and you're afraid and you're in uniform? I felt very bad.
All right. Chukwudi, let me confidently thank you this morning.
You mean thank me out? We are used to these things.
We'll carry on with the rest of the conversation and we'll see you again
Always
tomorrow.
a joy to be with you guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Good Morning Nigeria returns after this break. Please stay with us.